If you don't know me, my name's Moshe. I live in Israel in the Galilee. I've lived here for many years. I wasn't born here, but I've been here for many years. I'm an Old Testament, New Testament believer. So I'm going to put my computer glasses on and we'll get started. First, I want to go to the live stream and make sure that everything is working right. You never know. We got sound and picture. Good. I'm moving on it as quick as I can. It'll be a few more seconds probably. I'm a one-man show, so I don't have a staff like the Churchianity guys do. Okay. Being a Bible believing site, let's do some praise. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 Okay. So let me kind of explore. We're getting red alerts coming in with missiles and rockets. Let's take a quick look and see where they're coming from. If it was in my area, there would be a on the ground siren going off, which we would all hear, and that's not the case. By the Lebanese border, let's see, that's it. So Lebanon is giving us a good morning present. Nice of them, huh? So I want to describe to you what it's like to live in Israel since October 7th. And then I'm going to start getting into Bible prophecy. We're going to talk heavily about America and Biden and Iran, Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, Hamas, the Houthis in Yemen, and all of this. try to show you where I think all this is headed. Okay. First thing you need to understand is right after October 7th, our tourism went down by, I would guess, 95 to 99%. In other words, there are no tourists. Tour bus operators, nothing. You know, it's all dead. I occasionally hear of somebody coming in from, tourists, but it's extremely rare. There were some people here at October 7th that stayed for a while, but they had trouble getting out predominantly, and then they got out. So that whole industry has collapsed. Hundreds of thousands of reserve soldiers, which is the men, the reserves of the men, have been called up, and that has caused a lot of problems in a lot of businesses. They can't function correctly because a lot of personnel that are important to the operation of the business have been activated. Let me see where the latest missiles are coming from. Again, Lebanon. So it's not Gaza. So the economy is starting to be faltering, but they seem to be handling it. Real estate stopped increasing in value and rents stopped going up. Gasoline is still over $8 a gallon for diesel, $8 US. Food is still very expensive. There's a lot of used cars for sale now. People are getting into the economic problems of having the men in the military activated and they're not getting their paychecks. There's a lot of concessions being made for them on mortgage payments, so utility bills and so forth. There's a lot of resentment growing for Netanyahu in Israel. It's big. The Israeli people operate in a way like you can't talk to them. They don't want to hear it. They know, and if you're not an Israeli, I'm an Israeli, I've been here many years, I'm a citizen, but I'm what they refer to as an Anglo. Okay. So they don't like you, pretty much, if you're an Anglo. They take advantage of you, they'll cheat you, gyp you, be nasty to you. The people in Israel have deteriorated. I lived here in the 90s, and it was a much different, better place to live. Living was cheap and easy. Plenty of work. Food was cheap, rent was cheap. It was a different country completely. Today, it's not like it used to be. It's horrible. People are after each other, suing each other like crazy. Everybody here has a health care plan. Of course, it's the law. You got to pay into your health care. And they give you the choice of three um, basically government-sponsored healthcare plans. Um, you can pick whichever one you want. They use old drugs that America probably doesn't use anymore. The hospitals are, they're sort of clean. People are not nice. The doctors are nice. I know a lot of people that go for surgery and the surgeries don't come out so good. Um, it's the doctors are, oh, everything with these doctors is tests. All they want to do is do tests, test, test, test. And when they're finished with tests, they want to load you up with vaccines. They'll give you a vaccine for everything. You know, lots of people take them, and some people don't take them. You can get organic food here. It's costlier than regular food, and there's no certification standards. So it's basically the company says, "Oh, we tell you it's organic." Chiropractors and acupuncturists are not licensed, nor would an herbalist be licensed. So you can declare yourself whatever you want, but you won't get insurance. So people can sue you. So many people don't like that. Israeli people are sue happy. If you're a chiropractor and you were licensed in England or America and you could prove it, maybe have a current license, I guess, then they'll insure you. I don't have much experience with these people. Most of the drugs are controlled, unlike many other countries where you can buy things like antibiotics and other things without a prescription. Here it's not the case. You got to pay into the health fund every month, but because I'm retired, it's like dirt cheap. I think for me and my wife together, it's about $350 a year. And there's no deductible at the hospital, and you pay about 20%, 15-20% on prescriptions. Me and my wife basically don't go to the doctors anymore. We gave it up years ago. They're very annoying. Because everything is free, they want to run you through all kinds of tests and drive you crazy. They don't quit. I mean, test. It's really annoying. What you got to do is you got to go to them and you got to say, "Look, I really appreciate your efforts, but if it's all the same to you, I would just like you to treat me and not send me for all these tests." And then they may say something like they can't, or they get nasty, and it's really annoying. And they're not very good. Really not. I understand they're good on trauma from all the wars, but I don't know how verified that is. The wealthier people don't use the public health plan. They got to pay into it. And they get what's called private doctors that are supposedly better doctors than they probably are. And they'll still use a lot of the hospitals and the labs for diagnostic, but it's different. I don't partake in that. I guess you could say we just trust the Lord, and occasionally we use herbs and alternative healthcare, which we do frequently. So, I pray to stay away from them. I don't want any part of their system, and people get results that are discouraging. Um, Older people get hip replacement, and for months and years they walk around with walkers and canes and crutches and stuff. People in America get hip replacement, and they're exercising, 3 months later. Oh, something wrong here. So I don't believe in their medical. Being an Anglo, not being a native born, they'll discriminate against you too. I've experienced this. Not all the doctors, but some will. There are Anglo doctors. Anglo means they come from an English speaking country. So predominantly what we're talking about here is England, America, Canada, France is considered Anglo. Most of the people that would be here from the Jews that moved to Israel and got citizenship would be from, a lot of them from European countries, and they would get, they would have English. Caribbean countries, although you hardly ever see any of them here. Argentina, although they speak Spanish, they're considered Anglo. So the bulk of them would be America, Canada, UK, and then you see some from Italy, and they'll be considered Anglo. France, UK, I said. Tiny bit from Germany, not many. Israel used to be divided back in the 50s and 60s, where the Sephardic of the Jews that came from the Arab countries predominantly, and the Ashkenazi are predominantly the Anglos, although the Russians are Ashkenazi. So they used to have separate schools for the Sephardic and the Ashkenazi. They have different rabbis. There's a chief rabbi basically for the Ashkenazi, and there's a chief rabbi for the Sephardic. So the country is somewhat divided in that area. Okay? The kibbutzes and the moshavs are no longer what they started out to be. Many of them have been closed. Moshav sold their land, and there's some around, and they're doing okay. Israel has pretty decent universities and schools. They believe in education, and we have a large amount of ultra-Orthodox. These people are defined by wearing black coats, white shirts, and black hats, the men. And the women will dress with head covering, and they'll have long skirts or dresses, and they'll dress nicely, surprisingly, wear a little jewelry and stuff like that. They try to pretty themselves up. Curious. And they only go to an 8th grade education. And after that, the majority of them just practice the Talmud, which is not the Bible. It contradicts the Bible in many, many ways, and that's what they follow, along with Kabbalah, which is mysticism, probably refer to it as witchcraft, and that's what they follow. So they don't follow the Old Testament. They read it, they're aware of it, they're taught that they can't understand Bible prophecy. Only the top dog rabbis and sages would understand Bible prophecy. So they spend their time studying nonsense, not the Bible. And they go to what's called the yeshiva, which is a learning institution, and some of them stay there till they die. They're in their 80s and stuff. The Israel in general is about 50% secular. So they're pro gay rights, pro abortion, uh, pro I get married, just shack up, pro marijuana, pro I don't know what else. You know, they're not interested in religion, they're not interested in God or anything like that. They run around with their own shtick. They're doing their own thing. Shtick is a word from Yiddish. It doesn't really translate correctly. It means like a thing. A shticklock is a little thing. So anyway, Israel's divided right now. The hostages seem to be a big division. Um, the friends and family of the hostages are protesting against the government and Netanyahu avidly. For some days, they stopped the humanitarian aid from coming into Gaza. They correctly said the female hostages are being raped daily, which is true. And the other hostages are being mistreated. The medical aid from Qatar that they brought to Hamas to give to the hostages was never given to them. The Red Cross has never been allowed to visit them or check up on them or treat them. We have no idea how many hostages there are. The estimates in Israel, which are speculative at best, are at 110. Believe me, it could be 15 or 20. I'm sure they have some. They've never given us a list of the names or a count of how many hostages they have that are alive. They hid the hostages in apartments and different locations and everything else, in tunnels. And it was impossible for special forces to be able to conduct any kind of a raid to rescue the hostages because we don't know where the heck they are. We recently started using water to flood the tunnels, but it's not as good as you would think it is because they have blast doors, which looks sort of kind of like the door in a World War II submarine where it has a frame that comes up off the ground and down from the ceiling or from the sides. It's a metal door and they spin a wheel and bolts come out and it locks the door very tightly, watertight, against flooding. So these blast doors are all over the place in their 300-mile tunnel system, of which we maybe best case destroyed 25 or 30% of so far. And you can't flood them. You could just flood it by the section because then the blast doors stop it. And the tunnels are concrete, so they put these metal door frames in concrete, and you know it's not going to work. They're down so far bombing. They're down 90 feet, 100 feet, and bombing isn't that successful. Sometimes it collapses the tunnel, probably because there's a built-in weakness someplace. Gaza cannot manage to shoot many rockets anymore, but they can shoot some occasionally. It's annoying at this point. Um, we have 200 to 250,000 people that are displaced out of their houses from these wars. Probably 35-40% of them up by Lebanon, and the rest would be north of the Gaza Strip, Ashdod, Ashkelon, and then east to the south, like Sderot in the area near the Gaza Strip. They're staying in hotels. The government's picking up the tab on the hotels, which is good for the hotels because their business is down to zero from tourists. So they're getting some money from the government to house these displaced people. My guess would be probably about $60 a day. In addition, they get money from the government that enables them to buy food. So they're living in a hotel room. They don't know what's happening to their house. It's very hard. And these people are telling Netanyahu, no, we're not going back to Lebanon. We're not going back to Gaza. It's not safe. Now we're getting the impression that Netanyahu is building buffer zones by Lebanon and Gaza in Israeli territory. I think in Lebanon mostly, like about 1 kilometer wide. So he's basically creating a no man's land. Now, this will be useful only to stop infiltrators and idiots shooting shoulder-fired missiles from Lebanon. It's not going to stop real missiles and rockets. They'll just fly over it. But it will stop a lot of harassment. So he's basically giving up Israeli territory for this, but not really, because it's still under the control of Israel, but the people don't like it. In Gaza, it looks like we're going to create a buffer zone in their territory, but I am hearing it might only be a few hundred meters wide. Other reports are it could be 1 kilometer wide. I don't know. Again, this does next to nothing for missiles and rockets. It just stops rifle fire and shoulder-fired missiles. That's it. With the people here, there's a great degree of uncertainty. They don't know what's going to happen. A lot of Israelis will tell you there may not be an Israel anymore. They know all the nations are against us. The Israeli people know the Bible prophecies. God will fight for Israel and all that. What they don't know is the punishment on Israel for 2,000 years in Hosea 6, 1 and 2. Because they don't believe in Yeshua. The Talmud specifically tells them Yeshua is not the Messiah, he's not the Son of God, he's not a prophet, and he didn't rise from the dead. They reject Yeshua. They are antagonistic. The secular people know. They don't care if you want to believe in Yeshua. That's half of Israel, roughly. The others are very resentful. Not all, but many. They think that you're here to evangelize them. Now, the way they refer to Yeshua in general is in Hebrew something like Im Natsurim. It's saying that they're with the one from Nazareth, which is they don't want to say the name Yeshua. So the rabbis are teaching them to blot his name out, in effect. So they say the one from Nazareth. So they lump you together with Catholics, Protestants, evangelicals, Pentecostals, Greek Orthodox, Russian Orthodox, and everything else. What they don't lump you together with is Buddha, Hindu, Islam, atheism, communism, that kind of thing. So to them, it's all the same thing. And they're very nasty to Messianics, especially the Netanyahu government is. Now, living in Israel was very, very hard before the war. Netanyahu is anti-Aliyah. I don't care what he says. His actions are really opposed to Aliyah, and he's reduced it. Now, many of the Israelis, let's say even 2/3 as a guess, don't want Aliyah either. Why? For all kinds of reasons. Let me explain. People from America and Canada and England will come over here. They have a degree, they have skill. The businesses, the big successful ones, are frequently owned and operated by other Anglos, and they hire them. And the people in Israel that don't go to college don't get good jobs. So what have they done? They've exploited corruption. And who's given them this big channel of corruption but Netanyahu? 20 plus years as prime minister. So they support the Likud party, his party that he's chairman of, that contribute to them. Maybe they do work for them. And then they get help getting jobs, getting job promotions, and things like this. So they no longer try to advance on their own attributes. They try to advance on corruption, which Netanyahu encourages. In my opinion, Netanyahu is trying to destroy Israel the same as Biden is trying to destroy America. And why is they're both cut out of the same cloth? What cloth would that be? Satan's cloth. So there's so many legal barriers for a believer to come to Israel. They ask every new immigrant if they now or at any time ever believed in Jesus or Yeshua. And if they say yes, their paperwork gets rejected and they have to file a case in court. And the Supreme Court has ruled years ago that that's no grounds to stop them from coming to Israel. So it costs them a lot of money unless they could get a charity lawyer, which they do exist. And it takes several years. And usually before the case is over, after about 2 or 3 years of fighting, they see the person is determined with money to get the lawyers to fight it through, offer them a permanent residency, which means they can't vote. And many take it and some don't. And they usually prevail if they push it all the way. Probably a few days before they go to court, they'll drop the case, or because they know they're not going to win and they're going to get chewed out by the judge. And the judge is going to tell them that they got to pay the other side something for legal fees, which is going to be a pittance. Maybe $1,000 or something, not much. And maybe nothing. And they're going to say there's a Supreme Court decision. You knew you were going to leave. Why did you waste the court's time? So what this is a ploy to make them spend a lot of money and not come. Okay, years ago you could just come, but now you can't. And this is Netanyahu. Okay, Netanyahu is a creature after Satan's own heart. I don't want to call him a man. Some of you know that. And he's a real living piece of garbage. He really is. And he's done so much damage to Israel, and the people in Israel don't realize it. He's made it so expensive to live here because he wants to stop Israelis from coming here. Look, if the food was cheap, the houses are cheap, the gas was cheap, everything was reasonable, lots of Jews would come live here. But it's so freaking ridiculous to live here. Not only do people not move here, people that have been living here, their children are leaving because they know they can never afford a house in Israel. He is horrible, okay? Anybody that praises this guy that just doesn't know their left hand from their right hand, he's awful, okay? So he's facing 3 criminal charges right now, and he's probably put us in this war. The October 7th attack, I think, was like Pearl Harbor, you know, highly suspect. And he's coming under pressure to stop the war with Hamas and Gaza, so now he wants to crank up a Lebanon war. Because the people were foolish enough to believe that they shouldn't change their prime minister during an election because it shows weakness to the Palestinians, and instead they put up with a complete enemy of the state and my opinion, which is Netanyahu. He behaves like an enemy of the state. He listens to Biden. Why does he listen to Biden? The right-wing contingency of Israel, which is Ben-Gvir and Smotrich, is two guys. Together, their political parties are something like 15 votes out of 120. They're in Netanyahu's coalition, and when he starts trying to do idiot things against the best interest of Israel, they say they're going to break the coalition. Which basically means Netanyahu's criminal case is going to proceed rapidly. Now, some of the other people, the left-wing contingents like Yair Lapid, have said that if Smotrich and Ben-Gvir break the coalition, they'll step in and support Netanyahu. The left wing basically is interested in seeing the war end. But to be honest with you, there's not much left wing in a war. There's not many left, you know? If they call for a vote of no confidence, Netanyahu will lose today. Okay? And then, because we're in war, the Knesset would just turn around and say, anybody else have a majority in Gantz raises his hand, and they say, okay, everybody that wants to vote for Gantz, vote for Gantz. They count the votes, and that's it. If he hits 61, he's right then and there. The next day, or a day or two later, they swear him in. Netanyahu is reduced to being a civilian, and Gantz is the prime minister. Gantz is, for a brief period of time, he was a former defense minister, and for a long career, he was a top general in Israel. Netanyahu was never a general. He was in the army as special forces many years ago, as a kid. So, people are realizing that Netanyahu is not trustworthy. He lies. He lies to the people. He lies to Biden. And it appears to me that Biden is probably finished with Netanyahu. Netanyahu tells Biden, yeah, okay, I'll do this. And then he never does it. If he does all the things Biden wants him to do, he'll be thrown out of office and wind up in jail. But I think Biden is finished with him. He's just not reliable. Too much lying. To the people in Israel, when Netanyahu tells you something, you can't believe it. You have no idea if he's just talking or he actually intends to go through with it. You don't know. It's ridiculous. We just don't know. Let me give it to you this way, give you another way of looking at this. If Hamas was in our shoes and they had Israeli defense forces trapped in tunnels, what would they do? Without hesitation, they would put concentration camp strychnine gas in the tunnels and kill us. Netanyahu never will take decisive action against them like that. Many soldiers are expressing concern over Netanyahu. They don't know why certain things are being done by the IDF. It makes no sense to them. I mean, is it true that the flooding the tunnels won't work because of the blast doors? Why did he wait so many months to start flooding the tunnels? And I don't even know how aggressively he's doing that. The thought is because of his criminal cases and wanting to drag it out or hope for something to happen, he's dragging the war on. And the soldiers know it. The IDF had our soldiers pull out from the north and focus on the south of Gaza, and Hamas went back into the north and started operating again. Now we got to go back into the north and do it all over again. What kind of idiots are running the military? You know what I'm saying? People are worried. I told people before the war started that Netanyahu would get us into a war to stay out of jail. I also said that if it came to it, he would see Israel destroyed or busted up, because then there'd be no judicial system and no jail. And that's what we're dealing with this character, and they don't want to take him out of office because it's the middle of a war. Because of this corruption, you see people in government that have no qualifications, no education, no experience, in very high management positions. Then they have to hire people that have the education and experience, and they put them under them, and they become well-paid bureaucrats. That's Netanyahu. Our banking system is very oppressive on the people. That's part of his plan. They put a tax on cars of 100% to 150%. So what you pay for a car in America, we pay twice that. Plus, over $8 a gallon for diesel. How about that? Because your food prices have gone up in America, it's probably comparable to Israel food prices now. But wages are higher in America than Israel. Netanyahu fought for gun control for his 20 years. One of the reasons the October 7th massacre happened is these people couldn't get guns. So they're living near Gaza with infiltrations, and Netanyahu doesn't want them armed. His logic was, we don't want to become like America with mass shootings. Well, look what happened. I don't see any movement in Israel to get rid of them just for that reason, but they should. We had an incident in my little village community. A guy's car was burned, and the village was contacting all the regional police directors and everything else to get security increased and enhanced and make things better. And then we find out that the reason for this is likely because he owed some people money. Some people not being a bank, being the other kind of bank, you know, the unlicensed bank. Well, then it gets even better. We find out he's a Muslim living in a practically entirely Jewish village, and there's, I think, 10 Muslim families. And this guy's an imam. He's like a pastor of a mosque. And he's trying to get a mosque going in Israel because the law is if you have 10 Muslims in Israel, they have the right to build a mosque. See, this is the government of Israel, right? Put up a graven idol, you know, put it up. It's okay. Thou shalt have no other gods before thee. Oh, yeah, you got 10? Build yourself, you know, a temple to another god. You know, this is how they are. You're a woman, you want an abortion? Great. All you got to do is go to the health care plan and say, I want an abortion. Why? Well, I'm married and the father's not my husband. Do they do a DNA test? No. What do? Schedule the abortion. The girls in the military can have either 3 or 4 abortions during their time. They're 2 years in the military for free. After that, then they got to start paying. Okay? For some reason, Netanyahu opposes legalization of marijuana. The people have been fighting with him relentlessly. Because so many people in Israel, soldiers and civilians, are suffering from PTSD now from the bombings and the missiles, that they opened up medical marijuana to any old doctor can write you a prescription for it. So it's a lot easier to get. And then they decriminalized personal possession and stuff like that. The people here want full legalization. Full. That means tourists could go sit down in a cafe, order a cafe latte, a piece of cheesecake, and a joint of marijuana. He's fighting against that. I haven't heard a good reason why, but he's fighting against it. The right-wing people are trying to rebel against his tight gun control, and he's resisting them as much as he can. There's no reason for it after October 7th. It's absurd. Unless he wants to see another October 7th happen, which he might try to arrange in Lebanon to get the people's ire up and want to wipe out Lebanon too, which would mean another long war. He's that bad. I can't tell you for sure he intends to do this. I personally doubt it. But he may try it. So life after 20-something years with Netanyahu in Israel is very, very hard. And now he puts us in these wars. If the people in the south near Gaza had been able to have weapons like they used to, even if they were just 9mm pistols, The Gazans never would have come in. One of the reasons they came in with their AK-47s is that people aren't armed. They wouldn't want to get into gunfights with the people where the people are inside their house shooting at them behind walls from windows and cracked doors and stuff like that. They would be killed, lots of them. They wouldn't do it. It wouldn't happen. It happened because of gun control. So now they're giving some of the settlements, the moshavs and the kibbutzes, military assault rifles, and they're considering giving some of them anti-tank missiles. But I haven't seen much action in this area. Taxes in Israel are basically 50% if you're an employee. And it's about what they usually come to. Now you get concessions if you have a lot of children and stuff like that, but it's generally about 50%. Your employer has to pay for your medical plan. And in addition to that, we have a 17% tax. It's like a sales tax, okay? 17% on top of a 50% income tax, on top of a 23% corporate income tax. Do you see how it's near impossible to live here? The laws are corrupted. The landlords don't have to really make repairs to the house. I mean, it's just the theater of the absurd. People think the courts are corrupt. They find people that are, I don't have the right word for it, so-called connected, and know the judge, and they show up in court and this strange person is sitting there with them and nobody knows who this strange person is or why they're in the courtroom, but he's basically there to say hello to the judge. Seems fairly stupid, doesn't it? That's how the people think life goes on in Israel. I don't think it's that easy. And judges could easily wind up in jail. There's some sitting in jail now. So it shows you there is some corrupt judges that got caught. But I don't know what the extent of it is. I would guess it's pretty bad, but I don't, by the way that people believe in it, but I don't know for sure. The lawyers here are basically, they'll be your enemy as much as your adversary is. They're no good. I mean, are all of them that way? No, I think you have a very small amount of good ones that actually try to protect you, but I think it's minimal. I never heard of anybody suing the lawyers for malpractice. I don't know if it's possible. I never bothered. My idea is stay away from lawyers. You know. And courts, just stay away from it. They have debtor's prison. If the person you owe money to can show you have the money but don't want to pay them, and you don't pay them, then they could put you in jail. They got two courts. They got a religious court, the ultra-Orthodox, and they have a secular court. The religious court doesn't have a lot of jurisdiction over anything but family court, basically. That's about it. And I think if you're one of the spouses wants to use them and files in the religious court, it stays there even if the other one protests. But I don't know, there might be a way to wiggle out of that. It's just generally a horribly hard place to live. I know it could be exciting, you're in the Bible place, this prophecy, it really can be. I mean, and it is, and it's, the scriptures say this is where he accepts you in Israel. So there's a lot of great reasons to live here that are very important, and in my case, override the difficulties of living here in my priority system, but it doesn't make it easy to live here. The weather's horrible. The food, while being expensive overall, is crap because they kosher the meat, which means they wash the meat, then they put a lot of salt on the meat, then they wash the meat again and put a lot of salt on the meat. So the meat gets salty, it gets tough, and by salting and washing, they pull the flavor out of the meat. And they make you pay more for it. So we learned that, of course, the Bible, even if you're going to follow the dietary laws in the Bible, it says the animal is clean. There's no room in the Bible for having rabbis, kosher restaurants, meat packers. It's absurd. It doesn't exist. They made it up for revenue. So the food prices on the kosher, I used to think were about 15% higher, but I'm thinking now it's probably more like 35%. The food in Gaza costs about 1/4 what it costs in Israel. I wonder why that is. See, it's Netanyahu operating as the curse on Israel. And he's really cursed this country. At the same time, we've got 25% of the people, or 28%, living at the poverty line. On the other hand, we got a lot of billionaires and hundreds of millionaires, and it's a small country, 9.6 million citizens. So the Satan bots grow rich, and the other people get poor and stay poor. That's what it goes on. It's really hard. Take all this and combine it with wars and missiles and rockets and infiltrators and threats of more wars and having Biden tell you what to do. It gets pretty hard. If it wasn't for the Lord and ministry, I would probably not want to live here. I knew it was time for me to come back, and I was dragging my feet because I knew what was ahead of me, and I had a really bad time where I was. It cost me a lot of money, 6 digits. I learned my lesson. I'm going to take a fast break. Yeah. Now we'll get into more Bible-related stuff, okay? Do I think they'll get rid of Netanyahu? Maybe. I don't know. In order to get the right-wingers out of the government, the big left-wing party, Yair Lapid, is saying if they pull out of the government, he'll join Netanyahu. So it may not work. Now, there's a lot of people in America that realize that Biden is evil and he's trying to destroy America. They're secular. Patriots, gun nuts, preppers, survivalists, whatever, malicious. And they see the problem, but they don't understand a lot of things. They don't know how to read Bible prophecy, and they don't believe in it. And they believe in relying on themselves. I'm going to have guns. I'm going to have MREs. I'm going to have fuel. I'm going to have this. I'm going to have that. It ain't going to work. America's the daughter of Babylon. It'll be destroyed. And it's predominantly going to be by fire. God says he's going to kindle fires in and around the cities of America. In Jeremiah 50:51. Do you hear the preppers and the survivalists going out and buying fire extinguishers or guns? Please say, I don't know what this person's talking about. Why the chicken cross the road? Well, we don't need people like that in here, do we? All right. Has Biden done anything about Texas? No. Will he? I don't know. I understand Governor Abbott has run the Border Patrol agents away from the border fence. He's told them to get away because they are under orders to dismantle the fences he's putting up. Biden's ignoring it. He doesn't know what to do. Or is he? You see, what Biden is doing is promoting civil war in America. Now, if people see the Civil War coming and they're soon going to see that Biden's promoting it, they're never going to see what the Bible says because they're not going to ever believe that. They're going to die before they understand that. These sleeper agents, the illegals probably number at least 11 to 12 million based on the estimates I'm hearing. 70% are military-age male. They got males. They got more than enough resources to attack the military bases in America, which are poorly defended. They have a few dozen MPs running around in Department of Defense police with assault weapons and pistols and jeeps, and that's all they got. The soldiers are basically unarmed unless they're in training. And they're not allowed to have personal weapons, so they have no way to defend themselves. The bases have fences, and they have patrolling guards, police. And many of the police don't even have an assault weapon, they just got pistols. So when you're talking about perhaps 7 million illegals, how hard would it be for them to have, let's say, modest number, 2,000 or 3,000, like when they invaded Gaza, invade a base with pistols and rifles themselves? They'll overtake the guards in 10 minutes. The guards will call for help, and nobody's going to come. And they got the military. they're going to kill the soldiers. It says in Jeremiah 50:51, the entire military of America is going to be dead. It's plain. It's not veiled. And they could then take the tanks and the other heavy equipment, artillery, helicopters, jets, and use it against the American people. And then the axis of evil will invade. Once the military bases are destroyed, they'll come. Who's they? Iran, North Korea, China, Russia, Cuba, Venezuela, Belarus, and many Muslim terrorist countries. You think the Taliban won't come? You think ISIS won't come? They'll come in the millions. But America will be disabled without the military. They'll get Air Force bases, they'll get Navy bases, and they could destroy this equipment or take it over. And that's why you read the Americans are holed up in their holds, which means they're bug out locations or their houses. They're afraid to come out. Why are they afraid to do anything and come out? Because the Lord put the spirit of fear in them, but also what they're facing out in the streets is scaring them badly. So it could be these guys are coming around with armored vehicles. Will they go house to house and kill the people? Yes. Yes. That's why you need millions of them. Yeah. Will the people kill them? I guess some of them will kill some of them, but it's not going to work. Let's say you got a couple and 3 kids and they're all armed with assault rifles and they got, 6,500 rounds of ammo, and they got plate carrier vests, and they got Kevlar helmets, and they got night optics, and they got virtual red dots and everything else, right? So they come to their house. What are they going to do? These people are going to shoot at them. They're going to retreat. What are they going to do then? They're going to burn the house. In October 7th, they had special grenades that were incendiary grenades, and they threw them through the window, and they didn't go boom with shrapnel. They started fires in the house. The people were locked in their bomb shelters. They couldn't get at them, but the bomb shelters are not fire resistant. They're blast resistant, and shrapnel resistant, and bullet resistant. They're bulletproof, really, unless you're going to shoot some real heavy stuff at it, like 50 cal armor piercing. Even then, I'm not so sure you're going to get that far. But if you pound away with that, I'm sure you would make holes in it. But their AK-47s would just chip it and bounce off, So they burned the whole house down, and then people burned in their bomb shelter. They probably choked to death from fumes. They took the women and raped them so much that their pelvic bones were broken. And they raped them after they were deceased. Now you know who you're dealing with. They took a baby and cooked it alive in an oven. Yes, they did. There's video. They took a woman, they cut her baby out of her belly alive, and they both died, and the umbilical cord was still attached. They got video. They took people and children and women and tied them together with metal wire, put them in their cars, and burned them alive in their cars. This is what you're dealing with. Then they took hostages back, and to this day, they're still raping the women, from what we're told. And they abuse these people horribly. Old people, young people, small children. They put little toddlers, 2, 3 years old, in animal cages. We have video of this. They kept them in cages. That's how they look at the Jews. And this is who Biden helps. Biden doesn't want to see us have a victory in this war. I personally believe soon the wars are going to shut down with Lebanon and Gaza. I think it's going to shut down. I think Biden and other countries are working avidly around the clock to save Hamas. See, what they're trying to do is the nations that are after America have suffered from the sanctions horribly. Russian currency is down, their economy is not good. The people are surviving okay, but it's not good. They pay a lot less. They pay half or a fourth for food than what we pay. They pay less for gas, but they're not doing well. Their wages are very poor. Okay? They're doing badly. China is a mess economically. It really is. Vacant houses in probably the hundreds of thousands. Banks are upside down. Major corporations are failing. Exports are in the toilet. They're doing very badly. Iran, the currency hit a new low the other day. They're doing very badly. Turkey, another Muslim majority hating country, is doing very badly with a bad currency. Lebanon is doing very badly with a bad currency. Gaza, the economy is a joke. It's farcical. It's nonsense. Yemen, I don't know much about their economy. I have never studied it. I don't know. Jordan, their economy is getting by. Saudi, their economy is getting by. Oman, UAE, Bahrain, Qatar, Kuwait, they're getting by. They're not seriously doing anything to attack Israel. Their economies are working. Egypt's getting by, although Egypt is suffering now. Egypt was responsible for pushing for all these weapons coming into Gaza. They came through Europe. All the tunnel making equipment, all of this stuff came from Egypt. So now Israel is negotiating with Egypt. There's an area called the Philadelphia Corridor, which is Egypt and Gaza connecting. And Israel wanted to station military there. Egypt didn't want to hear of it. Egypt's going to continue feeding them with weapons. Egypt's role here, you have to understand this, is to make sure the weapons get to Gaza. And Netanyahu, piece of garbage he is, never talks about this. Goes to Egypt for help negotiating with Gaza. People in Israel put up with this. They put up with it. They don't know Bible. They know the rabbi's version of the Talmud and what they decide to teach them about the Bible. And they think all these promises in the Bible apply to today, and they don't. They sort of are coming back now, but they don't. And then they believe that, what's the point? Jehovah's not going to do anything, and then the fear sets in. So these nations want to get rid of America. Period. Then they're going to come back for Israel. But that's going to be some years away. It's called Gog and Magog. They're not going to go right after Israel. They're going to... It says the whole world is at peace and at rest after the daughter of Babylon's destroyed. So they're going to be happy. They're going to stop fighting with Israel. Israel will stop fighting with them. And they're going to go about their merry way of making money. And, they'll probably be building up weapons and, whatever they're going to do. Remember, to the Jew first, then the Greek. That's tribulation and the redemption. So the tribulation is coming. And it's going to come on Israel first, which is the Gog and Magog, as most of you know it, which is also Zechariah 14, which is Ezekiel 8 to 11, which is Zechariah 12, and Isaiah 13 and 14, into 14. So, and the whole book of Joel. But the church doesn't teach any of that. They just teach Ezekiel 38, 39. They don't want you to know about the two witnesses operating at this time. In Malachi 3, we read of Elijah training the Levites to make the sacrifices in the next temple acceptable to the Lord. This brings us into we have the next temple, and it comes down from heaven. They never teach this. When you read Ezekiel 37, it smacks you in the face plain as day that the next temple comes down from heaven, and I'll go through it with you right now. Let me look at the chat. Someone mentioned solar flares. Years ago, I followed the solar flares for about 2 years. Every time there was solar flare stuff, nothing ever happened. Watch, you'll see. See for yourself, nothing ever happens. It's nonsense. Somebody said that they're ashamed of what the American military's become. I agree with you, but it's going to get to the point where the American military is going to start doing something or thinking about doing something to get rid of Biden and this federal government as it is. You're going to see that. It says they tried to heal her, but she would not heal. They tried to apply balm to her wounds. What Biden is going to be doing is shipping the military equipment and soldiers and sailors and airmen and so forth out of America to different points of the world. And he's already well on his way with the Pacific, with Europe, and the Middle East. And it's going to get more and more intense. And more are going to be put out. Then they're not a threat to the Biden administration because they're overseas, far away. How are they going to get back? That's how he's doing it. You watch. "19 wars going on now globally." I believe it, but I'm a little surprised it's only 19. So Ezekiel 37. We got somebody here that's making good contributions from a military point of view. I appreciate that. Thank you. 37. It's the last 3 verses of Ezekiel 37. So I think it's 26. "Moreover, I will make a covenant of peace with them. It shall be an everlasting covenant with them. And I will place them and multiply them, and will set my sanctuary in the midst of them forevermore." Okay, the word for sanctuary in the Hebrew is mikdash, which is best translated as temple. Now, it says place them means in Israel. The word for place is Strong's Numbers 54:14. And then it says, "and will set my sanctuary in the midst of them." The word for set is 54:14. So 6 or 7 words previously it's called place. They translate it as place. Now they say set. Well, let's translate it using place, okay? "And I will place them and multiply them, and will place my sanctuary in the midst of them forevermore." You see why the next temple, not New Jerusalem, I know the difference, comes down from heaven. I'll keep reading. "My tabernacle also shall be with them. Yea, I will be their God, and they shall be my people. And the Goyim, the heathen, shall know that I, Jehovah, do sanctify." And the word for sanctify is kadosh. Now let me explain to you what that word really means in a way you'll understand it. In Hebrew, the word for holiest of holies is kadosh kadashim. Kadashim is the plural. holy. Yes, it's holies, and kadosh is holy. So what he's really saying here is, I, the Lord, do sanctify Israel. It should say holy, making Israel holy. When my sanctuary shall be in the midst of them forevermore. So whose temple is it? Jehovah's. And he's placing it in the midst of us, which would be Jerusalem. And the heathen are going to know that he sanctified Israel. Why? Because this temple came down from heaven. If this temple was made by a bunch of rabbis with construction equipment, do you think it would make the heathen think God sanctified Israel? Not in the least. If it came down from heaven, remember the house not made with hands, if it came down from heaven, it would look that way, and then they would realize that Jehovah sanctified Israel. I expect this in the next few days, weeks, maybe a few months. Elijah and Apostle John, the two witnesses, are here. They're waiting for the light to go green, and then they're going to start working powerfully. There's going to be conflict with the existing government. Who do you think's going to win? The two witnesses that can call down any plague they want, like blindness, boils, hemorrhoids, hailstones, fire, whatever they want. Frogs, locusts, water to blood. They can probably call a massive amount of rain down or stop rain. I mean, who do you think's going to win, the government of Israel or the two witnesses? Oh, but we're the elected officials of Israel. Yeah, well, God's not a respecter of persons, dude. It's his country. So listen, guys, there's two new sheriffs in town. And, we can do this the hard way or we can do it the easy way. What do you think they're going to do? They're going to sit there and say, oh, Prime Minister, live forever? I mean, are you kidding? You gotta be kidding me. They're never going to be that way. They're going to be very firm and clear as to the fact that Israel's going to be run by the manufacturer's handbook, the Torah. And that's it. And if they oppose it, they're going to get cut off. Many may get cut off. And that's why you see when the locusts are hitting us in the book of Joel, it says the land in front of them is like the Garden of Eden, and behind them it's like burned up. Field of burnt over grass. The locusts just devastate everything with the palmer worm, the cankerworm. All these crop-eating bugs just devour the place. It's not a 200 million man army from China. It's all these bugs. Of course that will cause a famine. Would the two witnesses put that on the people for being disobedient? Well, would Elijah in the old days? Of course he would. Let's read about Elijah. Let's read 1 Kings 19. And he's one of the two witnesses, and let's see how God used him. And Ahab told Jezebel. Now, Jezebel is... there's no J in the Hebrew alphabet. It's Eitspel. They call it Jezebel. It basically is exalting the god Bel or Baal. Okay. So anyway, I'll say Jezebel told Jezebel all that Elijah and his name is Eliah, which would really mean my God is Yah, or the God of me is Yah. Better, okay. That Eliah had done, and withal how he had slain all the prophets with the sword. So Elijah, not having the power at that time to put fire out of his mouth, or it's probably lightning in reality, used the sword. Then Jezebel sent a messenger unto Elijah, saying, so let the gods do to me, and more also, if I make not thy life as the life of one of them by tomorrow about this time. So she's saying about this time tomorrow you're going to be dead like a priest. And when he saw that, he arose and went for his life. It means he hit the road, right? And came to Beersheba, that's kind of near me, which belongeth to Judah, and left his servant there. That would be Elisha. But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness, which would be the parched place, uninhabited land, basically, not parched, and came and sat down under a juniper tree. And he requested for himself that he might die. Many of you probably felt that way at times in your life as a believer. And he said, it's enough. Now, O Jehovah, take away my life, for I am not better than my fathers. And as he lay and slept underneath a juniper tree, behold, then an angel touched him and said unto him, arise and eat. And he looked, and behold, there was a cake baked on the coals, and a cruse, or a pitcher of water, at his head. And he did eat and drink, and laid him down again. Now, if any of you had an angel show up and touch you and talk to you and say, here's some water and some food I made for you, eat it, I don't think you'd go to sleep for at least a day or two. You'd be so excited. To him, it was normal. Apparently, he just went right back to sleep. And the angel of Jehovah came again the second time, and touched him and said, arise and eat, because the journey, and that word is 1870, you could say journey or the way, is too great. The word for great is much. It's too much, really. But it's okay what he said it, for thee. And he arose and did eat and drink, and went in the strength of that meat 40 days and 40 nights. It means that's all he ate for 40 days and 40 nights. And he was traveling. unto Horeb, the mount of God. Mount Horeb. That's Mount Sinai. And he came thither unto a cave, and lodged there. And behold, the word of the Lord came to him. The word of the Lord. And that's the bear, which is the word of speech, or the talking of the Lord. And he said unto him, what doest thou here, Eliah? And God addressed him by his name. He said, I have been very jealous for Jehovah Elohim of armies, for the children of Israel have forsaken thy covenant, thrown down thy altars, and slain thy prophets with the sword. And I, even I only, am left. And they seek my life to take it away. When he's operating as one of the two witnesses, this same type of thing is going to reproduce. But they're not going to be able to kill him. And he's not going to run away from them. They'll run away from him. And he said, go forth and stand upon the mount before Jehovah. And behold, Jehovah passed by, and a great and strong wind rent the mountains. Now, this is similar to what happened with Moses, where God hid him in a cleft of a rock and said, you could see my back parts. This is going to be different. Jehovah passed by, and a great and strong wind rent the mountains and brake in pieces the rocks before the Lord. That must have been a wind, I don't know, 300 miles an hour or something. I don't know. I never saw a wind break a rock, did you? Before the Lord. But Jehovah was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake. But Jehovah was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire. But Jehovah was not in the fire. And after the fire, a still small voice. See, God demonstrated all his power, but because he loved Elijah, it didn't come at him like a trumpet. He just said, a still small voice. And it was so when Elijah heard it that he wrapped his face in his mantle and went out and stood in the entrance. No, wait a minute, I got it. And stood in the entering of the cave, and behold, there came a voice unto him and said, what doest thou here, Eliah? And he said, I have been very jealous for you, Jehovah Elohim of hosts, because the children of Israel have forsaken thy covenant, throwing down thine altars, and slain thy prophets with the sword. And I, even I only, am left. And they seek my life to take it away. And Jehovah said unto him, go, return on thy way to the wilderness of Damascus. That's in Syria. We bombed Damascus last night, by the way. And when thou comest and anoint Hazael to be king over Syria. So the 10 tribes were still there, and the 2 tribes, you'll see. And Jehu, the son of Nimshi, shall thou anoint to be king over Israel. So we got a king over Syria, which would be Judah, I expect, but it says Syria, so maybe it's something different. And now we still had a king over Israel, the 10 tribes. And Elisha, the son of Shaphat, of Abel Meolah, shall thou anoint to be prophet in thy room. In other words, with him. And it shall come to pass that him that escapeth the sword of Hazael shall Jehu slay, and him that escapeth from the sword of Jehu shall Elisha slay. Yet I have left me 7,000 in Israel, all the knees which have not bowed unto Baal, and every mouth which hath not kissed him. There's a lot of believers in Israel that don't go to the congregations. I'm telling you, I lived here for years. They don't have anything to do with the congregations. The congregations are nothing but Jewish churches. Okay? So he departed thence, and now I'm not saying they have good doctrine. I think all the ones I've seen don't, but they know enough to stay away from the congregations and the churches. So he departed thence and found Elisha, the son of Shaphat, who was plowing with 12 yoke of oxen before him. And he with the 12th, and Elijah passed by him and cast his mantle upon him. Well, that was to show him, that's his cloak. He was showing him that, he was going to take on this anointing as a prophet. And he left the oxen and ran after Elijah and said, Let me, I pray thee, kiss my father and my mother, and then I will follow thee. And he said unto him, Go back again, for what have I done to thee? And he returned back from him and took a yoke of oxen and slew them and boiled their flesh with the instruments of the oxen. So he took the wooden yokes and stuff and used it to make a fire, and gave unto the people, and they did eat. Then he arose and went after Elijah and ministered unto him. So he was like his assistant. So you get to see how Elijah worked. I think it's going to work in a similar fashion. Now, let's go to the previous chapter and get another look at how Elijah worked. It's going to be pretty similar, I can tell you. Believe me, I know. And it came to pass after many days that the word of Jehovah came to Elijah in the 3rd year, saying, Go, show thyself unto Ahab, and I will send rain upon the earth. And Elijah went to show himself unto Ahab, and there was a sore famine in Samaria. That's in the West Bank. And Ahab called Obadiah, which was the governor of his house. Now Obadiah feared Jehovah greatly, for it was so when Jezebel cut off the prophets of Jehovah that Obadiah took 100 prophets and hid them by 50 in a cave and fed them with bread and water. That's a lot of feeding. And Ahab said unto Obadiah, Go unto the land, unto all fountains of water, and unto all brooks, peradventure we may find grass to save the horses and mules alive. They wanted to keep their working animals alive. That we lose, see, it was horses and mules. They didn't do donkeys because donkeys would be crossbreeding, and the Bible doesn't allow that. That we lose not all the beasts. So they divided the land between them to pass throughout. Ahab went one way by him, and Obadiah went another way by himself. And as Obadiah was in the way, behold, Elijah, or Eliah, met him. See, the word, his name would be Eliah. Some say Eliyahu. It has the same meaning. Eliah and Navi, Ha-Navi. So he would be telling you he's Eliah Ha-Navi. Eliah Ha, the Navi prophet. And fell at his face and said, Art thou that, my lord Eliah? And he answered him, I am. Go tell my lord, thy lord, behold, Eliah is here. And he said, What have I sinned that thou wouldst deliver thy servant into the hand of Ahab to slay me? And Jehovah Elohim liveth, as Jehovah Elohim liveth, there is no nation or kingdom whither my Lord hath not sent to seek thee. And when they said, He is not there, he took an oath of the kingdom and nation that they found thee not. And now thou sayest, Go, tell thy Lord, behold, Eliah is here. And he's afraid they'll kill him. And it shall come to pass, as soon as I am gone from thee, that the Spirit of Jehovah shall carry thee whither I know not. And so when I come and tell Ahab, and he shall slay me, but I, thy servant, fear the Lord from my youth. Was it not told my Lord what I did when Jezebel slew the prophets of Jehovah, how I hid 100 men of Jehovah's prophets, by 50 in a cave, and fed them with bread and water? And how thou sayest, Go, tell thy Lord, behold, Eliah is here, and he shall slay me. And Eliah said, As the Lord of hosts liveth, before whom I stand, I will surely show myself unto him today. So
Obadiah went to meet Ahab and told him, and Ahab went to meet Eliah. And it came to pass, when Ahab saw Eliah, that Ahab said unto him, Art thou he that troubleth Israel? Well, the two witnesses are going to trouble Israel too, because of their sins. Got it? And he answered, I have not troubled Israel, but thou and thy father's house, and that you have forsaken the commandments of Jehovah, and thou hast followed Baalim. Today, same thing. Who do you think wrote the Talmud? Not God, the enemy. Now therefore send and gather to me all Israel unto Mount Carmel. That's a not so high mountain near Haifa. It's kind of, from Mount Carmel, you have a direct view of the nuclear plant in Israel. This is a highway that runs right by it. I don't know how high it is, and I don't know, probably no more than 2,500 feet tops. Probably not even that high. Maybe it was higher back then, I don't know. And the prophet of Baal, 450, and the prophet of the groves, 400, which eat at Jezebel's table. So Ahab sent unto the children of Israel and gathered the prophets together unto Mount Carmel. And Elijah came unto all the people and said, How long halt thee between two opinions? If Jehovah is God, follow him. But if Baal, then follow him. He's saying if Baal is God, follow him. And the people answered him not a word. They didn't know what to say. And said Eliah unto the people, I, even I only, remain a prophet of Jehovah, but Baal's prophets are 450 men. Let them therefore give us two Let them therefore give us two bullocks, steers, I guess, something like that, right? And let them choose one bullock for themselves, and cut in pieces and lay it on wood, and put no fire under it, and I will dress the other bullock and lay it on wood and put no fire under it, and call you on the name of your gods, and I will call on the name of Jehovah. And the God that answereth by fire, let him be God. And all the people answered and said, It is well spoken. And Eliah said unto the prophets of Baal, Choose you one bullock for yourself, and dress it first, for you are many, and call on the name of your gods, but put no fire. And they took the bullock which was given them, and they dressed it, and called on the name of Baal from morning until noon. That's several hours, and Elijah's hanging out watching this whole thing, saying, O Baal, hear us. But there was no voice, nor any answereth. And they leaped upon one the altar which was made. And it came to pass at noon that Elijah mocked them. So they were leaping upon the altar. And it came to pass at noon that Eliah mocked them and said, Cry aloud, for he is a God. Either he is talking, maybe he's on the phone, or they didn't have phones then, or he is pursuing, or he is in a journey, or peradventure he sleepeth and must be awakened. He's mocking them. And they cried aloud and cut themselves after their manner with knaves and lancets. They pierced the holes in themselves to get blood to satisfy the gods. Bloodthirsty gods, right? And the blood was gushing out upon them. And it came to pass when midday was past, and they prophesied until the time of the offering of the evening, that there was neither voice nor any to answer, nor any that regarded what they were doing. So Elijah really hung around and gave him a long run. And Elijah said unto all the people, Come near unto me. And all the people came near unto him. And he repaired the altar of Jehovah that was broken down. And Eliah took 12 stones, according to the number of the tribes of the sons of Jacob, 12 tribes of Israel, unto whom the word of Jehovah came. So, with the stones, Eliah built an altar in the name of Jehovah. And he made a trench, or like a moat, maybe you say, about the altar as great as would contain 2 measures of seed. And he put the wood in order. Guess he stacked it, and cut the bullock in pieces, laid him on the wood, and said, Fill 4 barrels with water, and pour it on the burnt sacrifice and on the wood. So he was drenching the bullock and the wood with water. Wet wood doesn't burn, right? And he said, Do it the second time. They did it the second time. And he said, Do it the third time. They did it the third time. And the water ran round about the altar. And the altarman, he filled the trench also with water. And it came to pass, as the time of the offering of the evening sacrifice. See, Elijah would have been a Cohen, because he will be, because he's going to teach the Levites. That means he's a priest, a descendant of Aaron, a Cohen. The same thing here, because he's offering the evening sacrifice to the Lord. Most people won't pick this up, but And that's why he had the widow woman feed him first. And she did it out of faith, and then the Lord paid her back because she was making an offering unto the Lord, basically by feeding him. Most people don't pick this up. And that would have put him in the cone category also, as I figure it. Offering of the evening sacrifice, that Eliah, the prophet, came near and said, Jehovah Elohim of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov and Israel. So in English it says, Jehovah God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel. Let it be known unto this day that thou art God in Israel. And it just says Elohim Israel. That's what it says in Hebrew. And that I am thy servant. So he's having the Lord testify that he is of Jehovah as a servant. The word for servant is a bed. How does Strong's put this into English? Servant. Okay, servant. And that I have done all these things at thy word. So he was told to do these things, I believe. Hear me, O Jehovah, hear me, that this people may know that thou art Jehovah Elohim, and that thou hast turned their heart back again. Is that not going to be what happens when Elijah comes? He's going to turn the hearts to the fathers and the fathers to the son. Most people don't know this, but it's the same Elijah, Eliah, same. And he comes first, but he may not come working openly first. Hint. Then the fire of Jehovah fell and consumed the burnt sacrifice, and the wood and the stones and the dust. Now, the fire... Sorry, we had an interruption. So, the internet Wi-Fi clicked out for some reason, and they took them, and Elijah found them, brought them down to the brook Kishon, and slew them there. So he was a man of war, and he will be a man of war. He used the fire to bring Israel into line, and he'll use the fire again to bring Israel into line, but it may be lightning type fire coming out of his mouth to get rid of the enemies. Can you dig it? It's the same guy. And Eliah said unto Ahab, Get thee up, eat and drink, for there is a sound of abundance of rain. So Ahab went up to eat and to drink, and Elijah, or Eliah, went to... Now, you got to remember, he cut the heads off of hundreds of these guys. He ran 40 days and nights on one meal. What kind of body did he have? Do you ever ask yourself that? Angels come and wake him up, and it's just like de rigueur, like normal stuff. Eat and drink, for there is a sound of abundance of rain. So Ahab went up to eat and to drink, and Eliah went up to the top of Carmel, and he cast himself down upon the earth, and put his face between his knees, and said to his servant, Go up now, look towards the sea. And he went up and looked and said, There is nothing. Now, from Mount Carmel, you could see the Mediterranean rather easily and plainly, no problem. I wouldn't think, And said, There is nothing. And he said, Go again 7 times. And it came to pass at the 7th time, he said, Behold, there ariseth a little cloud out of the sea like a man's hand. And he said, Go up and say unto Ahab, Prepare thy chariot and get thee down, that the rain stop thee not. And it came to pass in the mean while that the heavens was black with clouds and wind, and there was a great rain, and Ahab rode and went to Jezreel. And the hand of Jehovah was on Eliah, and he girded up his loins and ran before Ahab to the entrance of Jezreel. So this guy outran a chariot. You ever try outrunning a chariot pulled by horses? Try outrunning a bicycle. What's up with this guy? He went up to heaven in a whirlwind. It didn't say he died. I'm going to take a break for a minute. Be right back. Oh, I'm having trouble with the Wi-Fi network. I don't know what's going on. So, Eliah wasn't the normal guy. But when he was in the flesh, down here on earth, remember when Elisha said the prophets told Elisha that, the Lord's going to take your master up, and he didn't say he's going to die today. He says he's going to take him up. With Moses died. Eliah didn't die. But both of them came down and appeared to Yeshua on the Mount of the Transfiguration in a glorified state. Yeshua said, no one goes up to heaven but he that comes down from heaven. I don't believe Moses had, so to speak, an eternal body, incorruptible flesh. But he was pretty different. I think he was, 110 years old, and his eyes and everything was still good, and he had his strength and vigor. Now, that could be because, let's say, Adam and Noah or one of those guys lived a long time, and they at 110 would have been the same way. And then we read of the child dying at 100. I think the people in Israel are going to be that way very, very, very shortly. Like, not years, much less. But they're not going to yet have eternal life. When they see Yeshua, they will, because that's scriptural. When you see him, you shall be like him. And they're going to see the risen Christ. You're going to be like him. The people in the old days, the 2,000 years ago, saw the risen Christ, but not the glorified Christ. He was not yet glorified. Okay, now, just let me jump in the chat and see if I got to deal with anything. Like people cursing Israel or something like that. Someone says, hi, Grandpa. I guess you want to die at an early age? Is that my correct interpretation of you? You want to die at an early age? Boy, the hecklers abound today, don't they? They think it does some good to come in and mock or something. Is that what they think? I don't know. I could care less. I'd just get rid of them. They're a waste of time. Okay.
We have a prayer request here before I forget, which I'm headed towards forgetting right now, but I remembered. So, where did it go? No, I think it was yesterday and we did it. Yeah. Yeah, we did that. See, Elijah was spiritually over Israel and Judah, anointing the kings and the prophets, like he'll be today with his brother, Apostle John. They'll be running Israel as the judges, as per Isaiah 1. But why am I bringing this stuff up? Yeshua said, nobody goes up to heaven except those that come down from heaven. Now, it appears that Elijah came down from heaven to appear on the Mount of Transfiguration. And who was he with? Moses, who was not one of the two witnesses. So Moses was probably one of the sons of God that God sent down here, because he came down that way. He wasn't in Abraham's bosom. He was up in heaven with his father Jehovah. This is my speculation only. So when we go to the scriptures and we go to the last verse of Zechariah 4, for those that may not be aware of it, it's answering the question as to who the two candlesticks and two olive trees are. And in Zechariah 4:13 it says, "And he answered me and said, Knowest thou not what these are? And I said, No, my Lord. Then said he, These are the two anointed ones that stand by the Lord of the whole earth." It's almost correct English, but they deceived you in one huge way. The words here are shnaim, which means two, ben, or bene is actually what it says, which means sons. And anointed, the word actually appears as yitzar, which means clarified olive oil, which is the anointing oil. And yes, it does mean anointed, but what it does say in the Hebrew, in every single Hebrew text you're going to find, except they might have some modern schmucked up version, but I mean anything that's older than 200 or 300 years or something, all the ones I've ever seen say Shnaim B'nai Yitzhar, two anointed sons. And that's why they go up on a cloud to heaven the same way their brother Yeshua did. And that's why they're standing by the Lord of the whole earth, which is Jehovah. Now you know more than the churches do, don't you? To whom much is given, much is required. See, the churches understand stuff, but not the right stuff. They don't understand that the tribulation, according to the scriptures, it comes first on Israel, then the Greeks, then the nations, the Goyim, the heathen. They don't get that. So when Gog and Magog is over, the tribulation is going to be on the nations. Now, maybe it'll start, but it probably isn't going to start. So what I see is in the very, very near future, we're going to have a cessation of the wars. I could be wrong. I don't have solid scripture for this. The two witnesses are going to start working openly. Okay? And Elijah's going to train the Levites to make the offerings acceptable unto the Lord. And when Elijah's here, the temple will come. His job is what his job was in the days of that witch Jezebel. It's to restore Israel back to Jehovah, not the Talmud, not the Kabbalah, not this garbage. And then he's going to teach the Levites not only how to do the sacrifices acceptable, but they have to walk right. They can't be hypocrites. So he's going to teach the people Torah. That's what the Israelites have believed for many, many millennia, and he will do it. And he's going to get right into who the Messiah is, believe me. And he's going to have the signs and wonders. He'll do the raising of the dead, which Elijah did. He'll do the healing of the sick. He'll put the plagues on the enemies. He'll stop the rain. He'll have the fire, but in a much heavier, more meaningful way this time. And he's probably going to have a different kind of body. Okay? You know, I think somebody's attacking my Wi-Fi network for sure from local. There's so many false believers in Israel. I'm going to switch networks. Hold on. All of a sudden, 1 million people would start walking by the fence to make my dogs bark. So don't think I'm blowing smoke. There's a ton of false believers that live in my village. Believe me. Churchianity people, musicians, preachers, congregation leaders, people that travel around the world and talking and preaching. Michael Rood used to live near here. Yeah, I mean, there's tons of these clowns living here because they get more money living here and they divert the money away from the Messianic believers, the real believers. They divert the money by fooling the people into thinking they're real ministers of God, which they're not. And they live quite well. Some of them have incomes of $100,000 a month and more. Most of them have incomes of at least $25,000 or $50,000 a month. It's amazing how much money they make. Amazing, And they live pretty comfortably here until they're dead, which is coming. God's going to take care of them pretty good. It's one thing for a person to go live an evil life and destroy himself, be a junkie, a drunk, a gambler, an adulterer, a fornicator, or whatever, right? It's another thing to go drag other people that are trying to find God down to the pit with all your lies. That's a good hot spot in the lake of fire. Oh, yeah. And they have no fear of the Lord. They don't believe it. You can talk to them until you're blue in the face. They love evil. They think they're special. They think their God is a God, and they're not going to stop. Until they're dead, then they'll wake up. When they're dead and they're in the pit, they'll figure it out rather immediately. Actually, when the angels take them to the pit, they'll figure it out pretty quickly. And that's their problem. They like doing evil. Someone that just destroys themselves is one thing. They're not going to heaven, but their punishment, I don't think, is going to be anywhere near as great as these other idiots. The scripture is deceiving and being deceived. You see, the unclean spirits deceive them by getting them to deceive other people. So that gives the unclean spirits the ground to deceive them even worse. And the unclean spirits hate them because they know what's going to happen to them. They hate them. But you can't talk to them. It's pointless, You could try. It says you go to them 2 times, then you shun them. You definitely don't sit under them. You don't attend meetings with them in control or anything like that. You got to be out of your mind for that. I see them blatantly selling books, tours, prophecy conferences, music, all of this stuff. They sell this stuff. Freely you have received, freely you shall give, yet they sell it. And people buy it. They don't understand. If you ever had an anointing and started to sell it, you would be grieving the Holy Spirit, and by the time you actually did go to sell it, you would have no more anointing. God wouldn't put an anointing on you if you thought you were going to go sell the gospel. What about the poor? Yeah. So there's going to be a time very quickly in Israel where you're going to have Eliah and Yochanan the apostle, and there's going to be a lot of unsaved Israelis that are going to come to faith, and there's going to be a lot that aren't. And then you're going to have the exodus from America, and as far as I could tell, I don't see that harvest stopping in the wilderness to pass under the rod and enter the bond of the covenant. And they're going to be heavily unbelievers, and they're going to come here, and this is going to give you the people that are going to fall away. That's what's going to happen. You're going to see the daughter of Babylon go down about August 1st, give or take a handful of days. We got into the year of recompenses. So we got August, September, October, November, December, January. Now we're in February, we're in month 6. So between now and the end of July, I would say America is going to be gone. Then the world's going to be at peace. So we may have some war stuff going on for a little bit longer. America will be in peace. America will be gone, the world will be in peace. And Elijah and Yochanan are going to work on the people and try to raise them up and get them established. And the blessings of the Lord will come on Israel. Israel will be wealthy. Okay? Great food, everything. At peace and rest. No bars, no walls, gold and silver. Cattle. And then the falling away is going to come because the unclean spirits are not yet run out of Israel, and they will get the people to do the horrible things that you see in Ezekiel chapters 8 through 11, which the church never teaches. And the glory of God of Israel leaves the temple, and then the bad guy comes, and the trouble starts. Yet, God places a mark in the forehead of those that are grievous of the bad things being done in Jerusalem and the temple, and nothing bad happens to them. The word for mark could easily be his name, so it could be God puts his name in their forehead. And we read about that later on in, like the 144,000 and stuff like that. So, I don't have all the pieces to that puzzle. I don't work on that part too avidly because it's down the road quite a bit. Got enough to worry about here. So, worrying about what's here, Biden is going to make some superficial attacks in Iraq and Syria against these militia groups who have already evacuated their bases. They probably put on civilian clothes and are hiding, and they got all their weapons hidden somewhere. So basically, Biden's going to do a Netanyahu and blow up empty buildings. Whoop-de-doo. And they're going to blow it up in the media that it was a great big attack. Like with the Houthis. They haven't stopped anything with the Houthis. And the military is going to get disgruntled, and that could be a goal of Biden's to cause more dissent. He hasn't done anything against Texas. A lot of illegals are not going in by Texas. They're diverting and going into California. Who puts them on welfare? They get a cell phone, they get EBT card, food stamps. They get a cash stipend, they'll get a place to live, they'll get medical and everything else. So a lot of them are going into California. Will California rebel against the Fed? No, it's a welfare state. They can't afford to do it. They'll just disintegrate. New York City is getting ticked off at the Fed and trying to stop this migrant crisis. I don't think they can. I don't think they will, and I don't think they'll break with the Fed because they're another welfare state. Now, California and New York are great places for these immigrants, especially the sleepers, because the people in those two jurisdictions have to suffer through very punitive gun control laws versus Florida, where the gun control laws are pretty easy. I think in Texas, you got something, if you're carrying a gun in the car, you have to put it in the glove box or something like that. I don't know. I think they have some law to protect the police when they do vehicle stops or something. Florida doesn't have that.
You don't have to tell the officer who pulls you over that you have a gun. If you have one in plain sight, I would suggest you do. If you tell the cop you have a gun, he's going to turn around and say, "Give me the gun." And then he may take the serial numbers and phone them in, radio them in, and now the gun becomes registered to you. If it's already registered to you, it doesn't matter. I used to buy guns at gun shows for cash, and they were not registered to me. And then I had other guns that I bought in the stores where they filled the yellow sheet out. I wouldn't care about that because it went back to me. The ATF has special agents that carry guns and badges, and they have other people called them special investigators. They have credentials, which is 2 big ID cards like an IRS revenue agent or something. They don't have powers, but they got very impressive credentials. And they go to gun stores and, scan all these yellow sheets. They put them in their computers. They know all this stuff. The gun dealers don't want to tell you that. Most of the gun dealers, not all, but most of them are no good. Like CPAs with the IRS. The IRS puts them in business. Without the IRS, they dry up and go work at McDonald's. They love the IRS. They don't dislike the IRS. Many of them used to work for them. It's an insane theory. I've had IRS people in my family. You talk to them, they're going to say, "Oh, we're not collection. Act like they're white saints." Yeah, they're not. Believe me. So I don't know what Biden's going to do or if he's going to do with Texas. It looks like he may just try to ignore it. He might not have a good solution for Texas, and he may not be that worried about it because the illegal immigrants are already in. And the ones that still need to come in, if there are any, just go into another state. So he may just think his best move is to stand down. I don't know. He's not going to do anything meaningful in the Middle East, but the Pentagon, according to RT News, which is Russian, sent a notice to their soldiers that they should be ready for a Gaza war. I guess a flare-up of the Gaza war or something. And this was pretty recently, like within a week or less. And the way it was written is it sounded like the U.S. troops would have to go boots on the ground in Gaza. Now, is America likely to help Israel fighting in Gaza? I doubt it, unless they got some ideas about the hostages, but I'm doubting it. Biden doesn't talk much about the hostages anymore. So it could be to push a ceasefire down Israel's throat, leaving Hamas in charge and around to build again another day, and just forcing it on Israel. I don't believe this has a high probability. I'm just throwing it out there as maybe. But Israel's not going to put up with this one bit. They won't. Netanyahu would hand over the West Bank to Gaza and let them build missiles and rockets and kill all of us. In my opinion, he wouldn't give a hoot. Netanyahu just does what's good for Netanyahu. But the people in Israel are really not happy right now, and Netanyahu has to watch himself. So if Biden does send soldiers in with Israel to wipe the place out, or help Israel in some way, shape, or form, what that would be, I have no idea, other than look for the hostages. it'll turn resentment against America very bad. And then if the sleeper agents were to coincidentally start working, the people in America would turn against Israel, thinking America helping Israel caused all this, and resentment against Israel would be high. Not with all the people, but many or most of the patriots, militias, and survivalists are not friends of Israel. They'll say they're Christians, but they reject Israel. Are they aware of the fact that Yeshua was a Jew from the tribe of Judah? Who knows? If you talk to them, they'll probably tell you Yeshua converted to Christianity. You know, I mean, that's how dense they are. You know. The three B-52s could be here to help us with Lebanon. I don't know what they're up to yet. I can only come up with theories. So far, we haven't attacked Lebanon. So far, Biden hasn't attacked the militias that attacked his base in Jordan the other day. So what's up? Apparently, the two are coordinating. That's how I see it. I see the both of them, Biden and Netanyahu, is turning against their own country. I don't see anything good in either one of them, or honest or fair or anything like that. If we can manage a peace deal with Hamas, the Houthis stop, and Lebanon may just voluntarily say they stop, but they're not going to go back to the Litani River line, 17 miles from the Israeli border with Lebanon, so there's still high potential of a fight. So the 80,000 displaced people from northern Israel by the Lebanon border can return home. So it could be a fight. We'll find out how powerful Hezbollah is. The hard way, we'll find out. The Houthis, more ships are coming down there. Greece is becoming like a staging area to go after the Houthis, and they can bring all the Navy ships they want. They're going to have to do a ground invasion if they want to reduce the attacks on ships, and they probably will. I don't see any way they're going to get this done from the air. No way. I don't see it. Not in the least. They got to go boots on the ground, and they'll be able to do it fast. I'd say in 6 weeks they'd have the Houthis tremendously disabled, maybe 8 weeks. It wouldn't take a long time. But they're not getting anywhere the way they're doing it. The military of Israel is telling us 60% of Hamas is disabled. They're disjointed. The battalions are not working as a cohesive unit. They're divided up. They can't get together again. Lots of Hamas waiting for the jet. That was slow moving. It was moderately high and slow moving. There's more than one. But they're just patrolling. They're not hunting. They're going too slow. And when they hunt, they go much lower and much faster. They stay out of the radar. Well, I trying to think. Syria, occasionally one of these militia groups shoots some missiles in the Golan Heights or something like that. We're not getting much out of Syria. Iraq is too far away from us. They got to move into Syria and then come after us in Syria. Egypt's not fighting with us yet. Neither is Jordan fighting with us yet. They will. Neither is Turkey fighting with us yet. One day they will. Nor Saudi Arabia. And Biden is trying like crazy to control this whole thing. I'll see if I got questions. I hope I was helpful to you today, in some way, anyway. So, Elijah should be working openly very quickly, and that'll open up immigration for Israel, by the way. And Elijah probably is going to have a lot of help. He had Elisha back then, but I think he's going to have more help this time. Guten Morgen, Yiddish. Wow. Cool. Wasn't B-O. I don't know what B-O is. Sorry. So, okay, I'm Moshe. My wife is Rivka. Please pray for our peace, safety, protection, joy, and healing of our bodies. Thank you guys for the offerings. Pray for our finances. Keep the prayers up that our roof doesn't leak. So far, very small, minimal leakage. And pray for our animals and pets to be happy, healthy, and whole. They don't run away and fight with each other. And pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Let me see when our rains are going to end, according to the forecast, which is depressing to me. Saturday 60%, Sunday 40%. Oh, this is just horrible. Monday 50%. So please pray that we don't get that much rain anymore. I mean, the water level in the Galilee is so high, it's probably going to flood over. There's water all over the place. What's it going to do the rest of the day today? The sun's out. That's a shocker. I was forgetting what the sun looks like. It looks like the sun will be out until the evening. And then I think the rain's over till tomorrow. I don't see any of them giving. Let me check the other weather guys, see what they say. I just love sitting outside in the fresh air. I don't like staying cooped up in the house, running heaters to stay warm. Yesterday was so cold here, man. No, they're giving us under 10% chance of rain for the rest of the daytime, and then in the evening it'll go up. This is the other weather that's not exactly from my area, but nearby. And then they're saying for tomorrow 84%, Sunday 72, Monday 55, Tuesday 49%, then it drops to 24%, then 7%, 5%, 5%, 8%, 2%. And it looks like we're okay for a while, which is good because it'll give us, the roof will dry out if we have 3 or 4 days of sun. And then we can do some repair work on the roof. That's the game plan here, to do that. But with this rain every day, you know, you have some rain, you can't even, they don't even want to look at the roof. What's the point, you know? The birds are uncomfortable with this cold weather. We have to keep them indoors at night. We turn heaters on for the dogs and the bird inside, and they stay warm. I don't know, a couple of years ago I bought this cheap blanket at the supermarket. Just a synthetic, it's a thin, lightweight blanket. after we had the fire, I had to put a duvet on it because it took smoke, you know. And it just keeps me all kinds of warm. And I've been using that. It's great. You know, it's not heavy. It keeps warm. We got heavy blankets, wool and stuff like that, but this works just fine. And I run a heater, one of the electrode heaters near the bed. And I sleep rather comfortably. Sometimes it gets too hot, actually. And I was kind of hoping when this blast of rain is over that that's it for the winter, which it could be. I've seen winters like this in the 90s when I lived here. I have. I went through them. They're miserable, but I went through them. And what I'm thinking is sometimes mid-February you start going into spring. And I'm hoping this is one of those years. All these threats about the electricity going out are apparently bogus. They're not real. I think the fear is if Israel strikes the grid for Lebanon and brings the grid down for the whole country, that they'll try to hit our grids. But I'm not so sure Israel's going to hit their grids. They may not. I don't know. And they probably put iron domes up near the grid vulnerable areas anyway, so they could take down some stuff. So the next things to watch for are three, I guess. Well, I'll just tell you. Is there going to be a ceasefire with Gaza? Yesterday, Cater said that we reached the ceasefire and they started celebrating in Gaza, which was a joke. There was no ceasefire. We didn't even get close. Why they did that was for propaganda value. I don't know why they did it to their own people, but they did. They knew better. Cater's job is, while Hamas kills Jews, they act like the innocent, friend of Israel and try to negotiate. They have no friends of Israel. Egypt's the same way. They have no friends of Israel. And Netanyahu's a double nincompoop for using them to negotiate. If Hamas and them don't want to negotiate directly through us, well, let them just take a few hundred more bombs until they wake up. They keep talking about releasing terrorist prisoners in Israeli jails. Netanyahu says that's not happening. They keep saying the war has to stop forever. Netanyahu says it's not going to do that. I believe if there's a 6-week or an 8-week ceasefire, then it'll never start up again. Unless Biden and his country have gone, it won't start up again. Or unless the two witnesses fix it. They could fix that problem permanently real easily. So we'll have to see how this happens. Okay, but the scripture wouldn't be they do it alone. The people of Israel would do it, I think. It says they shall swoop down on the shoulders of the Philistines. They could be the two witnesses. It could be Israel, probably Israel. Lebanon, open your doors, let the cedars of Lebanon burn. But that, to an extent, happened already. There's been a lot of fires from our attacks up in Lebanon already. So we got to watch what happens in Lebanon, what Biden does in Iraq and Syria and other places, what the Houthis are doing, what Iran's doing. And I'll keep watching and posting you and trying to give you my analysis and stuff like that. Right now, we're just watching what's going to happen with Texas and the Fed. And, we got to take a look at what develops. Listening to their words doesn't do you much good. You got to listen to their words and then watch their actions and then try to put the pieces together. Based on just their words, you're wasting your time. They're just liars.
Okay, so I send my Shabbat Shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach and pray for better videos, better Bible teaching. And thank you for the offerings, and I'm out.